asked to give welcomes like this on a regular basis, but I'm so privileged to give this particular welcome today. That's because we're here to honor so many contributions of African Americans. And we're here to recognize them for their contributions to the nation's heritage, but also to our own New River Valley. And I'm thrilled to welcome you, Nikki Giovani, our guest speaker. Not only are we in awe of her literary accomplishments, but we're also aware of her humanity. And of course, I'm particularly reminded of the Virginia Tech situation. So, Nikki, you played such an important role in healing our broken hearts as a result of that dreadful day of April 16th, 2007. On a personal note, my Mary Ann was the Associate Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Human Sciences at that time. In her college alone, there were 12 people who died that day, 10 students and 2 faculty members. And she was involved in the personal crisis of many of the families. So, Nikki, you touched our household directly. So we are indebted to Nikki Giovani for restoring our spirits, for restoring our lives to some normalcy. You see, life must go on. In fact, we must celebrate. So we are here to celebrate the contributions, not only of someone like our speaker, but all African Americans. And if our founding chancellor, Dr. Daniel B. Hamill, was here, no doubt he would say it's a great day to be alive in the Commonwealth. He always said that every time he spoke. It's a great day to be alive in the Commonwealth. And it's also a great day for us to pause and remember. So let us proceed with this special ceremony. And again, thank all of you for attending today. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. The first time I saw Nikki Giovani, it's where Bridget and I took several students to a Black Leadership Conference in Williamsburg, Virginia. I remember her standing up there and how she always talked about how she loved Tupac. So that caught my eye because she really talked about Tupac a lot and that he was just wonderful. So maybe she'll tell you a little story about Tupac when she gets up here and speak today. Book notes. When her first poem first emerged during the Black Arts Movement in the 1960s, Nikki Giovani immediately took her place among the most celebrated, controversial, and influential poets of the era. Now, Nikki Giovani still stands as one of the most commanding voices to grace America's political and poetic landscape. Her dream was not to publish or to even be a writer. Her dream was to discover something no one else had thought of, she says. That's why I am a poet. We put things together in ways no one else does. Later, after writing her first book in a Master's of Fine Arts program at Columbia University, she decided she wanted to be a writer who dreams or a dreamer who writes. Now she has published over 30 books and received 7 NAACP Image Awards, a Grammy nomination, became a National Book Award finalist, and had 3 bestsellers on the New York Times and Los Angeles Times book list. She was named one of the 25 living legends by Oprah Winfrey. She was named one of the 50 great American women on the 50th anniversary of Thea Gibson at the Open of the United States Open. She is described as a national treasure by author Gloria Naylor. She has been on the faculty at Virginia Tech since 1987, where she is now a university distinguished professor of English. Please let us put our hands together and welcome Nikki Giovani.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be at the New River Valley. Before I forget, because I am old, I'm 72 if you did the math. Before I forget, I want to point out something that I hope that you all will consider sharing with us. On the 29th of September, we being Virginia Tech, we are going up to JMU because we share programs with James Madison University and Virginia Tech. We're going up to JMU to celebrate Maya Angelou. And what we're going to do is we're going to sing spirituals. And I'm really hoping that we're going to take a bus up. But if you all don't want to take a bus, you just want to come up to Tech and then ride up with us, it would just be wonderful because we want a lot of people to come up and share it with us. And everybody sings. I really don't have a good voice, but my favorite spiritual is my soul is it is well with my soul. And I decided no matter what, I'm going to sing that. And I'm really hoping, well, you know, that's a point. Ain't no point in being a Christian. You can't do what you want to do. So, and I'm really hoping, of course, that we're going to get Frank Beamer to come and sing with us because Frank is no longer busy, you know, winning football games. And, well, we want to bring in a lot of people. Maya meant a lot to a lot of people, and a lot of people love Maya. And it's just the kind of thing, when I realized I was coming here, I said, oh, I really hope that New River Valley will consider joining us. It's not the kind of thing you have to sign up for. I never do programs that have any money involved, which is one of the reasons that I do really great programs for those of you who are young. Why does Nikki do great programs? Nikki does great programs because she found out a long time ago money ruins things. No, it is true. You know, if you start to be, when we celebrated Toni Morrison, if I had to pay Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, Angela Davis, and India Arie, just to name those few, I got $1 million worth of talent. That's going to be a problem. So the thing that we solved that is we don't pay anybody. It worked. I did know what they drink, and I found everybody's. Well, you got to find out what people drink. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that in front of your president, but you must do that. But I just wanted to share and to invite you to think about it. I will remind us that we're doing it, but it's a wonderful thing. I saw you were getting extra credit from me, and I'm sure we can find a way to get extra credit to go up there to do that. And it would be just a wonderful thing to join us. I'm glad to be here because I think Black History Month is important, but I'm glad to be here because we in Appalachia have such a great history, and I'm always talking about it, of all of the, if I may say it this way, with no disrespect, but of all of the white people in America, the best white people are Appalachian, and I'm sure that you It's true. That just happens to be true. And I think that it's a shame that we don't have as many people involved in the history of Appalachia as should be. What we have allowed America to do to both whites and black in Appalachia is to kind of laugh at us. You know, you can still call people hillbilly, as you well know. I'm sure you know that. That you couldn't call me a nigger, but we can call a white person a hillbilly because you know it's true, because we're still kind of putting them down. One of the reasons that Appalachians are so important is that Appalachia has always stood for the best in America. I'm a history major. Some of you are. One of the things that we know that Appalachia did is that if you would be a runaway slave, there's a new TV show on right now, and I haven't seen it. It's called Underground. And I don't know how it's going to deal with it, but I know the Appalachian Trail runs from Alabama all the way up here. And I know that if you could find your way up into Appalachia, we were not going to turn you back. The white people up here were not going to send you back and make a slave out of you. We know, in fact, that the Civil War, which I never did understand why any Appalachian would have a Civil War flag. What is that thing? That flag that they float. That's the dumbest thing, because none of us in Appalachia were Civil War people. If we had not, in fact, decided to move away from Virginia, now I know I'm in Virginia, but if West Virginia had not said, we are not going to, and I will quote, we are not going to send our sons to die so that the Shenandoah can have slaves. The Civil War would have been different. And it was incredibly important that West Virginia did what it did, and we in Appalachia should be proud of it. But I also want to share one other thing, if I'm not making everybody crazy. One of the other things that's so important about us right now, that is key to what's going on Earth, is that we in Appalachia are in control. We are the spiritual force behind the space program. 90%, as you well know, of the astronauts are Appalachians. And I don't know if you've ever asked yourself, how come they're all Appalachians? I don't know if you have, but you should, because one of the reasons that we know that we have so many Appalachians who can go into space is that we can live within ourselves. We know that the important thing on Earth is being able to live within yourself. We had, and I love him so much, let me tell the whole story. I did a favor recently, a little while ago now. I did a favor because my answer to almost everything is yes. And the NASA wrote me, National Aeronautical and Space, and they wrote and asked for something, and I say yes to everything, so we said, well, Jenny says yes, and I said, yes, we're going to do it. And we let that happen. And I didn't know then, because I'm talking about money earlier, I didn't know then that I was going to get paid. So a couple of weeks later, Dr. Bolden's secretary, or whatever she was, wrote and said, you know, Dr. Giovani didn't send us an invoice. And I was going like, my God, you mean I get paid for working with, because I love space. And so I thought about that, and I have to laugh, and I mean no disrespect, but even at my age, I can stand on a corner and make money. So I know that money, so you can't let a check, you know, control everything. And I thought, boy, if they want to pay me, what I want is to meet Dr. Bolden. So that's what we wrote back and said, you know, we'd like to do that. And Dr. Bolden said, well, if she's going to come up here to meet us, then what we would like, I would like for her to meet all of my people. So it took us a while to work his administration group together. But we went, it was a thing that we would clear for, of course, Dr. Bolden. We went up to NASA, and we got to talk to him. And one of the things that I wanted to say to him, and he hasn't said no, but he hasn't said yes, is that I want, because I'm a Virginia Tech person, I mean no disrespect to New River Valley, but I want NASA to send 10, at least 10, maybe 12 students from Virginia Tech to Antarctica, and a couple of faculty members. I've been to Antarctica, so it's not something I'm trying to do for myself, but a couple of other creative writers. And I want them to be able to go so that they will be able to say what they felt and what they thought and how they adjusted to being in Antarctica, which is quiet. There's nothing in Antarctica, as you know, but the penguins. And so I wanted to send the creative writers to figure out how do we go forward. Now we know that John Glenn, we know that all of the astronauts are engineers and physicists and people like that. So when they have gone into space, they've gone into space with a job to do. We need the creative writers to go into space and to feel what it is, because we've allowed a whole bunch of people, which I think is crazy, to write about space as if there's nothing but people in space who want to kill us. Every time you read about some science fiction, it's like the science fiction person comes down and they want to kill the Earthlings. They want to eat us, they want to murder us or something, and it's crazy. But then we know those people are also the same people who think that you and I should be murdering each other. You and I, the same people that want to build walls to keep us from being able to visit with each other, whether it's in Mexico or the United States, with the same people that some fools are after to try to say, you know, it's more important to hate. It's not more important to hate. We need the creative writers in space so that they can begin to understand what is it that is going on up there. We know, those of us who are history majors, we know when we study Magellan, people like that, we know that Magellan and them had a hard time. Nobody talks about it because nobody wants to admit what a hard time they had. Magellan and his men, you know, raped each other and killed each other. It was difficult until they finally realized where they were going. Did that just make sense? Because that's what happened. They needed to realize, where are we going? So if we're going to do exploration and we don't know where we're going, we have to send people who can live within themselves and who can find something wonderful. I'm a big fan, frankly speaking, of black women. I think that black women are everything. I think that the world without black women would just be a sad world. And that's not that, it's true. You know, it's not that I don't like white women or something, it's just that black women are better. And it's just very important. And we know that no matter where black women find themselves, the first thing they do is look around and say, baby, who's here? They are a kind people. We know that black women have made it. And all we can do, we can look around America and see that we have made it and produced something that had not been produced before. We can just look in this room and see that something has been produced that has not been produced before. And in doing that, the black woman is the one who has loved and taken care of it. The black women have said, this is my baby. So we know we got to send black women into space so that they can be the ones that whatever it is that's living there, they will be the ones to embrace it. This is so incredibly, incredibly important. And I just love the idea of it. We here in the New River Valley are Appalachian, so we know also that whatever it is that you all bring to us, you do not bring fear. You do not bring bigotry and hatred. You actually bring love. I know that if my car, when I used to have I have a good car right now, but when I used to have a little Volkswagen, I know that if my car broke down here in Kentucky, here in Virginia, here in the New River, if my car broke down, there would be some lady sitting up in just a little cabin, nothing fancy, and she would go, Paul, car broke down, and he would say, I'll be right there, and he would come down to see if he could help me, and she would come down and bring me water. And somebody would tell me, these people are prejudiced. That's not a prejudice, that's a good neighbor. And I think it's time that you and I fought for who it is that we are, for the best of us. Because right now, we have allowed people who don't like us to determine who it is we are and how we get along. And I think that that's just not a good idea. We are a great people. We are a great people. That's the truth. So I'm very excited, and I want to just stress again, for those of you who are young, I'm too old, I'm 72, and I had cancer. Don't smoke. Let me say that. If you don't smoke, don't. Because one of the things that happened, my generation we smoked. And one of the things that happened to people like me was that I had lung cancer. And I'm going like this because of my left lung. And my left lung had a tumor and had to be taken out. And it wasn't that because I had a good doctor, obviously, and I have survived that. But the problem now is, of course, I can't go into space. I can go into space, as Dr. Bolden and I had this discussion. I can go into space, but I can't come back. That's the problem. Because once you have a void, once I come back, as I come back into gravity, this void will be filled. So if my stomach, for example, moves over, or my liver moves over, it'll kill me. And so I can't do it. Dr. Bolden said, well, I can't send you into space, Nikki, because you'll get killed. I have figured out one thing. He hasn't said yes, and he hadn't said no on this one either. But one of the things that I know, nobody in my family lives a long time. I've outlived all of the Giovanis. The Giovanis are from Mobile, Alabama, and they're all dead. I'm 72. I have outlived all of the Giovanis. None of them. My sister almost made it to 70, and she died at 69. One of the things that the Watsons, who is my mother's side of the family, they're from Tennessee, the Watsons live forever. And at one point, my cousin B was the oldest person on earth. She was 104 years old, and she was the oldest person on earth. I'm probably as much Watson as anything else, but I don't think I'm going to be 104, to tell you the truth. I'm not seeing it. So what I'm trying to get Dr. Bolden to agree to do is when I get to be about 80, if I make it to 80, which I hope I do, then he would let me go up. And then I'm going to die in the next 4 years or so. I'll get some poetry written, I'll get some things done. Well, yeah, you know. And I think it'd be exciting, it'd be wonderful to do. And then when I die, which I'm going to do anyway, no matter whether I'm on Earth or in space, I got to die. But when I die, I'll be in space. And so what they can do is just open the hatch and just let me out, and then I can just float. It'd be wonderful. It will be. It will. And then your kids will, go, oh, there goes Nikki. You just look up on a clear night. It'll be wonderful. It's important that we begin to think about space. I just wrote an article. I don't know if they'll publish it for the Roanoke Times, because we're having this situation with the Supreme Court. Scalia died, and so he's got to be replaced. And I wrote a letter to the editor because I wanted to suggest, nobody listens to poets, I'll tell you that, but I am suggesting that we actually have on the Supreme Court Dr. Charles Bolden, who was the head of NASA. And the reason that we want to put him on the Supreme Court is that he understands Earth. And he's not the only one, but right now he's just the one who's young enough, and of course his IQ is 190-something, so he's smart. A lot of people don't realize that you don't have to be a lawyer to be on the Supreme Court. And I thought, if we sent Dr. Bolden, this is Mother Earth. Where we're living is called Mother Earth. Everybody calls it Mother Earth. Well, if it calls Mother Earth, then there has to be a birth. There has to be somebody to be born. The only people who have been born are the astronauts. So we have to look at, okay, who has gone out? The astronauts have gone out. You and I, we sitting in this room, we're just incubating. And all you have to do is look at our history and see that we're incubating and that we have a lot more to go. Speaking of the Lord, speaking of God, a day is but 1,000 years in his sight. So we don't know how long it is. We don't know where we are in this incubation, but we know we're not finished, because if this is finished, this is a sad situation, and that's the truth. But I thought, well, why don't we send an astronaut to the Supreme Court who will now be able to look at us as what we are, which is just children of Earth trying to struggle, trying to get forward. I'm sure nobody's going to put an astronaut on, like they won't put a poet on either, but I just thought I'd mention it because I'd love to. Wouldn't you love to have an astronaut on the Supreme Court? Because we've got too many lawyers. It really is just too many lawyers. But I came today, and I thank Dr. Lewis for inviting me and for allowing me to come and share. I have, as I say, I'm a big fan. I am a big fan of Appalachia, and I'm a big fan of us and our history here. This is a great history. And whatever else it is that you're doing, try to look at where we've come from and what we've actually done. That's going to be important as we go forward. It's going to be important that we look at who are we and how do we go forward with that. I wrote a poem that I wanted to share. It's called When God Made Mountains, because it seems to me the most reasonable thing on earth is you would make a mountain. If you were just going to make an earth, of course you have to have water, so you got the oceans and things like that. You can look at the moon and see the water and see, and I don't know if any of you all are into space like that, but Pluto is not what they say it is. And everybody keeps saying, Pluto that's ice. That can't be ice. That would be illogical. So there has to be something underneath that, which is why they should send a poet into space. I wrote a poem, When God Made Mountains, because I wanted to celebrate us. When God made mountains, he made runaway slaves with no book knowledge of the North Star, nor botany classes describing moss on the north side of the trees. He made black men and women unafraid of mountain lions or Florida panthers. And no matter what Teddy Roosevelt tried to show, bears do not like people. Not the little cuddly koala, not the fierce grizzly, not the mighty polar, nor the humble mountain black bear. All bears and their dens are to be avoided. God did make Jack Rabbit, who could be snared. God made the possum, who was slow. God made the clever raccoon and rivers sweet with fish. He made berries and nuts and green leafy things, which were safe and good to eat. When God made runaway slaves, he knew they would need a friend, not only in nature, but of a humankind. So he sent mountaineers. He sent white people who would not be a slave nor own one, who would not kill a slaveholder nor die for one. He sent a free white man who believed in change and a free white woman who believed in him, and they made their home amid these mighty mountains. They liked to have a drink or two, so they welcomed Johnny Appleseed, who brought stories and fermented applejack. They liked heroes, so they welcomed the traveling preacher with his message of a man who has trampled out the vineyard where the grapes of wrath are stored. They liked to sing, so they welcomed the runaway slave with his banjo, and friendships were formed. When God made mountains, he made men and women who would respect each other, who would need each other, who would carry the word so that all men and women could be saved. When God made mountains, he said, "Come unto me, ye who need rest." And they called it Appalachia, the original word for peace. And folks said, "This cannot be done." And the rest said, "Yes, we can." And the clouds settled in that welcome place between ground and trees and sky, like smoke coming off a coffee pot, like steam coming from a kettle of pinto beans, like the rustic smell of of a wood fire burning at day's end, at the end of home and peace. Like God has a rocking chair in the sky, smoking his pipe and being proud of his great Smoky Mountains. Thank you. I'd like to close on we're all fans, I'm sure, of Martin Luther King Jr. And I think it must be hard, really, to have been famous. You know, I can't imagine Martin could go to Kroger's, that Coretta could say to him, Martin, while you're out, you know, before you come home, would you pick up a pack of pinto beans? You know, I can't imagine that he could do a lot of things like that. And yet, a part of his responsibility was to remind us all that whatever it is, we need to love and respect each other. I wrote a poem in the spirit of Martin. This is a sacred poem. Blood has been shed to consecrate it. Wash your hands, remove your shoes, bow your head. I have a dream. That was a magical time. Hi-ho, silver, away. Oh, Cisco, oh, Pancho, here I come to save the day. I want the world to see what they did to my boy. No, 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 I'm not going to move. If we are wrong, then the Constitution of the United States is wrong. Montgomery, Birmingham, Selma, 4 little girls, constant threats, constant harassment, constant fear. SCLC, Ralph and Martin, father knows best, leave it to Beaver, Ed Sullivan. How long? Not long. But what, Mr. Thoreau said to Mr. Emerson, are you doing out? This is a letter from Birmingham City Jail. This is a eulogy for Albany. This is water for, this is a water hose for Anniston. This is a thank you to Diane Nash. This is a flag for James Farmer. This is a how can I make it without you to Ella Baker. This is for the red clay of Georgia that yielded black men of courage, black men of vision, black men of hopes, bent over cotton or sweet potatoes or pool tables and baseball diamonds, playing for a chance to live free and breathe easy and have enough money to take care of the folks they love. This is why we can't wait. That swirling Mississippi wind, the Alabama pine, that Tennessee dust defiling the clothes the women washed, those hot winds the lemonade couldn't cool, that let the women know we too must overcome. This is for Fannie Lou Hamer, Joanne Robinson, Septima Clark, Daisy Bates, all the women who said, baby, 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 I know you didn't mean to lose your job. I know you didn't mean to gamble the rent money. I know you didn't mean to hit me. I know the Lord is going to make a way. I know I'm leaning on the everlasting arms. How much pressure does earth exert on carbon to make a diamond? How long does the soil push against the flesh, molding the moan that becomes a cry that bursts forth crystalline, unbreakable, priceless, incomparable Martin? I made my vow to the Lord that I never would turn back. How much pressure do the sins of the world press against the heart of a man who becomes the voice of his people? He should have had a tattoo, you know, Freedom Now or something like that. Should have braided his hair, carried his pool cue in a mahogany case, wafted that wonderful laugh over a plate of skillet fried chicken, drop biscuits, dandelion greens on the side. This is a sacred poem. Open your arms, turn your palms up, feel the spirit of greatness, and be redeemed.